previous video we learned about width and height, but now we're going to take a look at device width and device height. There's actually a pretty big difference between width and height and device width and device height. And that is that the normal width and height media features are a measurement of what the browser is actually displaying in the viewport, minus the browser Chrome toolbars and scroll bars and so on. It's simply a measurement of the actual viewport. Device width and device height, however, are a measurement of what's called virtual pixels that the device is capable of displaying. Note that while the ratio of physical pixels to virtual pixels is usually 1:1, high-density displays like the iPhone 4's Retina display have a 2:1 ratio of physical to virtual pixels. That means that device width on an iPhone 4 and on an older iPhone will both actually return the same value. So, let's try using device width on our normal web page here first. And we'll even go ahead and use a min and max prefix. So we're just going to switch over to our text editor here, and we're going to delete all of our styling first, and then we need to change our media query here. So we'll go ahead and say max device width, and we'll change this to 320 pixels, and we'll switch the body background to green, and I'll just go ahead and close that there. So in this simple example, we're saying that if a device has a device width that is less than or equal to 320 virtual pixels, then go ahead and change the body background to green. I'm going to show you the effects of this in a desktop browser, and then I'm going to show you this using the iPhone simulator. We're going to simulate an older iPhone, an iPad, and an iPhone 4 with a Retina display. And before I show you each one of these, I want you to try and guess what the outcome is going to be so that you can test your mental model of how this is actually being measured. If the results surprise you, don't worry, because we'll be talking more about virtual pixels in upcoming videos. So first, let's go ahead and look at our desktop browser. So I'm just going to go ahead and refresh. And as you can see, nothing has changed. That's because I'm using a high-resolution display that's much larger than 320 virtual pixels wide. So next, let's go ahead and try out the iPhone simulator. This will simulate any of the previous generation iPhones. So I'm going to go ahead and open Safari here, and there is our web page. And if you were expecting a green background, you were right. Previous generation iPhones have a 1:1 pixel ratio. For every virtual pixel, there is one physical pixel. Now I'm going to go ahead and switch our device over to an iPad. And I'm going to go ahead and open Safari slightly off screen here. And in this case, we don't get the green background. The iPad has a 1:1 pixel ratio, but the number of virtual pixels across is much greater than 320. So finally, let's go ahead and switch over to the iPhone 4 hardware. Now, I know this simulator actually looks like an iPad and appears to be much larger than the iPhone that we just tried, but that's because even though both an older iPhone and an iPhone 4 are roughly the same physical size, iPhone 4's display is much more dense with pixels. Because I can't actually increase the pixel density of my monitor, the iPhone 4 just takes up much more screen real estate. So time for the grand finale here. I'm going to go ahead and open up Safari. And if you thought that the iPhone 4 would have a green background, you guessed right. The virtual pixels on an iPhone 4, as I mentioned earlier, are exactly the same as the virtual pixels on any other generation iPhone. This way, sites will appear to be the same size, but will possess greater clarity in the display of images and text. There are ways we can differentiate between higher density displays and more normal displays, and we'll talk about those in an upcoming video. As you're already starting to see, media queries have a lot of applications on mobile devices. In the next video, we'll take a look at a few more.